Hey, I'm Joe Tobiason. I'm a wedding photographer in Seattle, and this is Lena. She works with me, I guess. But I've been shooting film for a really long time. It's where I got started when I was first beginning to get into photography, and then, I've done digital a long time too, and I've really been getting back into film in the last couple of years. It gets really expensive when you're just doing it yourself, and so I've been looking for ways to do it cheaper and also just to be involved in the process. There's so much about film and that it's hard intentionally. Is that right? You definitely can send off your film to labs that are phenomenal and do amazing work, like the Darkroom or Indie Film Labs or whatever you use. They do such incredible work, and if I was doing it professionally, if I was doing film and I was going to deliver to a client that they were paying for, that's probably what I would do. And so this is a process I've developed over the last year on how I do my scans, and a lot of it's pulled from other people, plus adapted, put together, and the people that I pulled from, their links are down in the bottom, so definitely go read those and see the really smart people that I've learned a lot from. With all that said, let's scan some film. Go. I'm going to open up Epson Scan, and which is where I'll do the scanning. So I have no changes that I make to it. I just scan it in just completely flat, exactly what comes natively out of the scanner. I know there's some people who do it in other ways and do a lot more work in the scanning app. I just think it's a really cumbersome program, and that was a big part of my frustrations and stuff, why I've had so many problems, and so I just kind of skip it altogether. So it's already loaded in there. In here, I always go to the professional mode. It's on film, color negative film. Set it to 48-bit color just because you need, especially with the way that what we're going to be doing, you need as much depth as possible. 2400, especially because this is medium format film, that's plenty. And then go down here to configuration, and then go over. So this I'm going to be shooting 6x6. So click on film size, set it to that. And then in color, here at no color correction. That's what we're looking for in this situation. So now I'm just going to preview it. So now the previews have done, and I can see them here in the thumbnails. I could go into normal and crop it myself, but honestly, these look pretty good, and so I'm pretty okay with it. I'm just going to quickly over here and write them to be vertical in the direction or orientation I want them to be, and then I'm going to scan them. Let's go into scanner. I want them to be on TIFFs. And this is from my Portugal and Spain trip from earlier this month. And we scan. Okay, so now that I have a few of those scanned in, I'm going to show you how I do this processing. So we have here, we have a photo that I've pulled up, the very first, and we're just going to work our way through my processing thing. So the very first thing I always do is I just duplicate the back layer, the background layer, just to make sure that I can always go back to it. So Command J duplicates it, make it go away, donezo. Now the next thing that you want to do, and this is where we're going to really pull the colors and the contrast out of it. If you imagine that scan, the reds, the blues, and the greens, the RGBs, those are all like a little bit skewed and stuff, and so what this is going to help you do is find what's the base and what's the maximum of each of those colors, and it helps bring out the color balance in it. The way that we're going to do that is we're going to use a curves layer. So I'm going to go down here, add layer, add curves, and that's going to come in just like that. I also would say, before you do this step, you should do your cropping, and you should also do any basic spot removal that you need to see there, because those little tiny dots, the little specks of dust or whatever that's on the film can throw off this next step. So first I'm going to crop, and I want this to be a 1-to-1 crop, so we're going to do, and it actually looks like it already is, so we're good there. And next I'm going to go over here and I'm going to grab the spot healing tool, and I'm just going to really quickly make sure that I'm on the layer. I'm going to go through and just fix up a few of these things real fast before we do anything else. Definitely one thing to think about when you're cropping is I always make sure that the delete cropped pixels is unchecked, just to make sure that I can then, if I wanted to go back out, it's still there, and I'd be able to add that back in if I wanted to. So that's done. So now we're going to go back in here to our curves layer, and this is where we're going to do the real work. So I'm going to go up here and click the 3 lines here and go down to Auto Options. Then we're going to go here to Enhance per Channel Contrast, and you can already see in the background how much of an enormous change has happened there. And what that's doing here, as you can see in the histogram, is that it's saying that this is where how much red there is, this is how much green there is, how much blue it is, and then it's balancing it all out. And then it says how much do you want to clip. So I usually set it at 0.1 and 0.01 for these two in here. Now there are times every once in a while where I want to add a little bit more contrast in here, so I can like clip more of the blacks by increasing that in there. And it does a lot of difference, but I don't want to do that right now. Because I actually want to be able to do this all in post in the work and make sure like I really am intentionally doing what I want to do. So we're going to do that, and there it is. Now that photo is looking pretty good, but now I can see a little bit more dust. I would say basically whenever you see dust, go ahead and work on it, because you're going to always see more dust. But if it catches your eye, just make it go away real fast. So now the next step that I'm going to do is I'm going to start on top of this, is we're going to start adding some more layers and things to make more stuff happen. So the first thing I usually do is I usually like, because especially since for this one, this is an Ektar photo, I actually like it to have a little bit more color and stuff. So I go in here and I just bump that up 20 just to add a little bit more in there. If you want any particular color to be brighter or have more saturation, whatever, you can grab the little eyedropper here and go left and right and make those things do whatever within that particular color channel. So maybe I want the reds just to be a touch brighter, just like that. Looks good for now. Then the next thing we want is we want a levels, and then a curves, and then finally I want to add a color balance on top of it. And these are all the ones I'm gonna work from. So what you imagine now is that with this photo, using the auto options that I've done, I now have perfect black through perfect white balanced out. That's all that's there as far as the information in the photo goes, and now I'm stylistically choosing what I want to do and how I want to change it. So I would say like I want these shadows to be a little bit punchier and a little bit more contrast in them, but not too much in there. So I would say that usually what I do is I use the levels here to adjust the midtones to see how bright or how dark a particular image is, and then I add contrast with a curves layer. So in this one, because by doing that, by only adjusting the midtones here, it means that the white point and the black point is static, and I'm not going to be able, like, that's not going to be messed up, and I'm not going to be clipping those extra colors off of them. So I want it to have just a touch extra brightness here in those midtones in there, and then I'm going to go into the curves, and now that that's been adjusted, I can make an S curve here within the curves layer, and it's starting to really add that punch that I want to the photo. I don't want that to get too deep in here, but I want maybe those to get just a little bit stronger. Something right in like that looks really good to me. Now I'm starting to worry about these highlights right in here, that those are getting a little bit too blown out. So I'm going to bring that down just a little bit right into that spot, and that is looking pretty solid for me. Now once again, as I've said, you're going to constantly be seeing more specks of dust, and so I'm going to say, let's go on a fast forward here, and I'm going to zoom in and do a pretty intense little dust removal time. So, finish that for now. Obviously, there could be more dust, and maybe I'll find that down the road, but I'm okay with where this is at. So the last thing on here is color balance, and that's when really useful then for those fine-tuning the shadows, the midtones, and the highlights to make sure that the colors are matched as the way I want them to. So I'm looking at this, and I don't mind that there's all this blue here in the shadows and those white walls. But let's say I did want to make that just a little bit warmer, so I could go in here and just adjust that yellow tone. And that's only going to adjust the shadows in there and add just a little bit of yellow in there. Maybe I want just a touch more red, just in something like that. And let's say then in the midtones, overall I think the midtones look pretty good on this photo, so I don't really want to touch that for now, but I could also go into the highlights and say we want that sunset to be just a little bit more golden-y or something, so we add just a touch of red, and just ever so slightly touch of blue, or yellow. And now this photo is looking pretty darn good to me. So the last thing I want to do is I want to sharpen it just a little bit, so I'm going to do Command. So what we're going to do is Command A to select the whole thing, and then Command Shift C, and that kind of copies it as it currently is, and then Command V, and that pastes that as a new layer in here. And so now it's just this whole thing that is everything that we've seen before, and now it's one standalone layer. I'm sure there's a term for it. I don't remember what it is. I don't really care. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take this layer, and I'm just going to add a little bit of a sharpen to it. So we're going to do Sharpen, Smart Sharpen, and I do the custom, this 145 radius 3.9. That, I mean, honestly, this is just what I found looks really good on these things. You definitely can sharpen more, but I've just found that one, that's like the right amount for me, right in there. So that'll run, and it's going to give it just a touch more crispiness. So now that Smart Sharpen is done, almost every single time I run it, I would say that I see a little bit more dust that I need to go through and remove, and I'm just using the spot removal tool in here. And then the last thing that I like to do, and I don't do this on every single photo that I do, but every once in a while it's nice, I can also go back into here and do the camera raw filter. And maybe I just want to add just a touch more punchiness to a photo or something else that just makes it just a little bit more. So once the camera raw loads, and it's just like it is in either Camera Raw or Lightroom, and you definitely can do this in Lightroom, but I prefer to do this in Photoshop as this is, because it just works on that one layer. If you do it in Lightroom, it's a global adjustment, and so if you then wanted to go back and like dump it back into Photoshop, you would either have to lose all of the adjustments you have and it come in as only one layer, or you'd have to say, forget the adjustments I made and to revert it to whatever it was beforehand. So I prefer that once I put these into Lightroom, I'm not going to do anything else to them. And so I'm going to go in here, and I just want to make those whites pop just a little bit more, make the shadows just a little bit darker in here, and just add just a little bit of clarity. That's way too dark in the shadows, so let's pull that back out in there. And let's actually, let me see if I can save just a little bit of that sky. Yeah, that looks good. Now obviously, like, this is a film photo and stuff, and I'm trying to keep that vintage feel. I use a camera, the Mamiya 6, which actually I can show you, which looks like this, the Foldy camera. It's like a 60-year-old camera, so it does have that vintage feel to it, and it's an old lens. It's not the most sharp, it's not the cleanest, especially mine, which is a bit dirty of the lens and stuff. And so I don't necessarily want to lose that kind of vibe, so I don't want to make it so punchy and like perfectly crispy, whatever. So this is how I like it. And we're done. That's the photo. It's ready to go. So let's do another one. But that's also a lot of work that I just did, and it gets super annoying to try to do this all really quickly. So I created an action, and that will be available here. You can get it you can download that action in the show notes down below. So I go in here, positive scans, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna do everything pretty darn quickly. So I hit play, first thing it does. Since I already cropped, it does. Since I already cropped, it doesn't like that, and that's what's just telling me, hey, you already did that, that's weird. But we're gonna go in here, hit stop. So now we get to this point, and we're back in here, just like I said before. Please go through and do your major dust that you see right off the bat. Now we're done with that, and now I'm gonna run the auto options. Auto options. Goes in there, does that, looks really good. Boom, ready to go. Now, one thing I would say, this is something I didn't mention before, but it's super useful. If you do this and all these photos look really blue, look like the color cast is off, take this middle one here, and that's gonna help you with your white balance, and click on something that you think is a pretty good white. And so this being sunrise, let's find one of these walls or something. I can click on a few of these, click around until you find one that represents the color you really want it to be. So if I click over there, oh, that really throws it off. So maybe that looks good, or there. I'm gonna go with that one right in there. So that looks good, click off of it. Now back here in my action, I'm gonna hit play, and it's just gonna make those same layers that I did before. So now going here to levels and levels. For this one, I actually I kind of want those shadows to be nice and strong. So let's do that. Then we're gonna go back in here. I wanna make that S-curve just a little bit stronger. Now I think that's just a little bit too much. So let's go back in and make that just a little bit brighter into there. And we're gonna go in here, I mean, you can imagine I would go through, I can, delete all the dust and stuff as much as I want. I think the color balance looks good. One more time, hit play, and it's gonna do the sharpening for me. So I figured I'll show you one more photo. We'll do it one more time. Run back through. So this is the double exposure. This was actually an accidental double exposure. So, maybe some people would throw it away. I actually really like it. It's a bummer. I actually kind of like the original photo, but I think it turned out really cool. So again, it already cropped, so it's Yeah, it's fine. Auto options, boom, right into there. Now we're getting somewhere. This one I definitely could try to punchify it a little bit more beforehand, before I run it out, because I don't mind if I lose those clippings, just because it's the double exposure. We're trying to make sure that those stand out. I think the white balance is could use a little bit warmer, so I'm gonna click over there. That's too warm, that's too cool. So just keep trying things until you find something that works. That looks pretty good to me. So we'll run the rest of that now. Into there, I want to pull those levels down, because I want this to be nice and punchy in here, nice and dark. We're going to make that S curve even stronger, just in like that. That's a little bit too dark, so let's pull that back up just a little bit. I'm going to go into those color balances there, and in those shadows, they're just a little bit too blue, so I'm going to warm up the shadow lines just a smidge right in there. And then again, I could go through, I could delete all the things, I can run the sharpening, but by now I think you've got the picture of what this stuff looks like. So I just want to say thanks to you for watching. Definitely follow me on Instagram at Joe Tobiason, and let me know how this works for you. If you can ways to make it better, let me know, because I would love to make this video obsolete, because we're better at scanning film. In a couple months we can make a new one of these. But thank you.